Gourmet Brewing, Greenville, South Carolina. I am tickled to death to be on screen today with Scott Janish. And those of you that caught the Deschutes program, you heard Veronica Vega mention Scott not once, not twice, but three times. And so I thought I ought to talk to Scott. So I'm talking to him right now. This is a pop-up event, so I know there's no notification, and my apologies to those of you that are going to feel like you're going to kill me because I didn't give you notification, but Scott and I are working on an event coming up. So we're just brainstorming the topic. If you've got some ideas, I'd love to hear from you. And if not, we're going to keep brainstorming our topic. But for those of you that are catching this, put in your questions for Scott, and we're just going to continue brainstorming our event. So, Scott,
Yes,
thank you
thanks.
for doing this. And of course, we've been talking for, almost 30 minutes, kind of brainstorming this topic. And I need to check one thing, Scott, to make sure. Aha, there we go. All right, had to click one other button. So anyway, I love the idea of taking this with the yeast and route, and hopefully we can make it a little broader than just purely the genetically modified, even though it would be good to mention that.
Mhm.
Now, we do calibration beers, and the purpose in the calibration beers is to kind of have some examples that talk to your presentation. So Veronica, for example, had three different beers. Two were hers, and one was it Tank 7? No, it was not Tank 7. I don't remember what the other one was. And so her presentation when we tasted those beers talked to the subject.
Mhm.
So as we talk about biotransformation, are there some calibration beers you can think of that would uh, help build this yeast
Yeah,
focused biotransformation topic?
honestly, I think a lot of this stuff is just so new, and the science is so new, and a lot of these strains that we're talking about aren't even officially out yet. They're still in their marketing stage and all that. And I've just been lucky enough to get them a little early and experiment with. Beers that we could use as sort of something to work off of a conversation would probably have to be some trial ones that I've done here and just throw into a can and send your way. I think would probably be the only way to do that, because it's a complicated topic. Biotransformation is super complicated. I mean, it's not when if you look at it, you can get blurry eyed pretty quick. But if you're willing to kind of sit back a little bit and really think about it, and and just like three different forms of biotransformation, I think we could kind of walk through and see how these new GM yeast strains are kind of unlocking some bound potential in hops, and also looking at the science of why they're doing it and how they're actually doing it. So it's biotransformation is something I have tried so hard to understand and talk about and do in my home brewery before, and now at the Sapwood where I'm at now, in our brewery. So I think it's finally getting to the point where we're understanding it a little more, and there's finally products now that are doing what we were hoping we could do a couple of years ago.
Well, the audience likes to be able to buy examples that at least we're talking through that may not be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were talking about Sierra Nevada's Hazy Little Thing. If that's a good one, that's widely distributed. Um, Again, my audience or the gourmet brewing audience is nationwide, North America and South America, but at least the North American audience would love to acquire, and of course, wherever else they can get these specialized beers. So I think if you can think, and I know I'm catching you cold with this question, but as you prepare, if we can think of some at least beers that have some aspects of biotransformations that would be illustrative to
Yeah.
people when you're making a point, you go, well, this hazy little thing, has this characteristic or that characteristic. And I'm not pushing for hazy little thing.
Well, I
It,
mean,
it's just
on target where it
top of
comes to,
mind.
right. I mean, I think you're on target when it comes to hazy beers because that's kind of the where a lot of this research is focused because you're trying to make a tropical, bright citrus beer even more tropical and even brighter, and that's where you can kind of use some of the science. There's some biotransformation that's happening with just normal yeast strains, but it's very minor, I think, in terms of um, becoming to like a sensory threshold for a lot of these, at least the commercial beers that are out now. Um, so, and unless some of these breweries are using some commercial enzymes to push some of these things, honestly, I don't think there is probably a lot of good examples out there that are doing this for sure that I'm aware of, which is kind of cool because I think as a home brewer, if you're a brewer yourself, it's kind of on you to experiment with this and try to figure it out. So, I'm sure there will be more in the future, and maybe there are now that are some of these big breweries are using some of the science and doing it. But I have not aware of a IPA or double IPA that's where they're really doing some crazy things to push biotransformations. But I think it's a lot of brewers think by dry hopping, 2 days into fermentation or whatever, they call it the biotransformation dry hop. I mean, there are compounds that are being converted at that stage. They're these monoterpene alcohols is what they're called. And you're going from like, um, draniol to like beta citronellol. So there's like, and a normal yeast strain can do that, but that's really about the only thing those strains can do. And they're not even close to they don't have close to the potential that what's called hop thiols and a different hop compound have when those get bioconverted. So I think we're still just so early in this game that for us brewers to try it on their own, they might have to get dirty in their brewery and try it that way rather than just going to a store and buying it. But that's the exciting part, I think, is these flavors are new, these products are new, the science is new, and so that's what I love about doing, blogging and writing about some of this stuff is trying to, not everyone's following every new research paper that comes out. So I love being able to get excited about that stuff and try to share it with everyone else. Be like, there's amazing research going on out there. Here it is, everyone. Let's play with it.
Well, and that's and gourmet brewing audience would love to see that too. So any of that research that you can share. Well, I just thought it was interesting. And I recall now the other beer that Veronica had, and it was John Mallett's Two Hearted.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I'd never really thought about it. Essentially, John was talking about the biotransformation techniques that they used to create Two Hearted 15 years ago. Although I don't think it was called that back then.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard, I didn't listen to that exact part, but like I said, like the understanding of biotransformation then was almost, non-existent. The
Right.
wine world was looking at it more then, which is interestingly the same compounds that we're trying to push in hops or in wine grapes. Um, but again, the point of pushing some of these flavors for biotransformational purposes is still so new, and that like although like people are doing biotransformation things, they're not, the potential is so much greater in some of what the new science has out. So that's why it's I would love to take a Bell's Two Hearted and use some of these enzymes while in their process, or a strain that can unlock even more, because that's an all centennial beer, right? I would love to see what some of these yeast strains that could free some of these bound thiols on centennial hops and see what that would do to a Bell's Two Hearted. I think it would be would be kind of outrageous. So it's almost like the stages of biotransformation, of stages of how we're understanding it. And I think it'll get more and more exciting as they can do more and more with, technology like CRISPR.
Yeah, and the beers just keep getting more delicious. I mean, it's the biotransformation seems to have kind of changed the definition of IPAs, which used to emphasize IBUs,
Mm-hmm.
to now it's more of an emphasis of flavor, which I'm on board with. These, you know, double and triple IPAs, with 80 or 100 IBUs, while they're novel, they're just a bit over the top. And I don't know that you could use the word flavorful with those.
Yeah, the IBU race is fortunately over, I hope,
I think it is. I think
but it's almost swung too far the other way. I mean, I think that there's a lot of beers coming out, hazy IPAs in particular, that don't have enough hot side hopping. There's not enough balance there to help
now,
balance all
that
the outs.
that would be a good topic also. I mean, we don't want to get too broad, but that actually is a really good point that has not been brought up. We've spent a lot on biotransformation and juiciness, but where do you bring in the bitterness?
Yeah, it's both, like from the kettle, you're bringing in a little bit of bitterness, because when you dry hop, you actually add bitterness and you're pulling out some hot side bitterness. Like the vegetal material itself is pulling out isomerized alpha acids. So you're kind of replacing those in a way with when you dry hop with a different bittering acid. But more importantly to me is using heavy whirlpool additions at the right time with the right hops provides more of like a base hop saturated flavor that I think you need in a heavily dry hop beer. Because if you just slam a beer with a whole bunch of dry hops, it gets really vegetal and kind of one note. But it has to kind of be balanced with that hot side flavor, which is, there's a whole bunch of new research from Yakima Chief that I wrote an article on a while back on survivable hop compounds. And so there's a lot of potential there to talk about hot side hopping, which is something I think is also probably not understood that well. And there's a lot of, like, there are just certain hops that are just great as a whirlpool hop that, and some that you use that you can't even tell you used any hops. And this is all when you're tasting your beers. When fermentation is done, you're tasting it before you dry hop, you're smelling it, you're tasting it. And that's where you're like, did the hops I used on the hot side have an impact? Does it smell hoppy? Is there any sort of like fruitiness there? And I think a lot of times if brewers are honest with themselves, they'd say, no, it just kind of tastes like a beer at that point. It's the dry hops that make it shine. But there is some research that can kind of guide brewers into using certain hops that will push those beers just a little further.
Well, I know you've got a hard stop in just a minute or two. So I know what that is. How much more time do you have? So we're
Yeah,
careful.
10 more minutes if that works.
Okay. So let's kind of bring this back and focus in on the last 10 minutes. Love your idea of how hops fit in, excuse me, how yeast fits into biotransformation,
Mm-hmm.
because that has not been touched on well at all. And if you want to talk to either one of those labs or both of them, but find somebody that's a good speaker, and as I said, I'm looking for the same kind of passion you have, and see if they'd want to join in either live or recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not available for the live event, if they would record something or jump online with me like this, and we'll pre-record it and then inject it during the live event, that can work too.
Cool. Yeah, I will. I will reach out and engage some interest and see if we can put together a little back and forth that will be helpful. Hopefully, even for me. I love quizzing people like that are actually in the lab and have a much higher IQ when it comes to all the hop science. So that could be
If
fun.
they're smarter than you, they'd be scary.
That's true.
Think about the calibration beers. because we do need some widely available commercial beers, two or three, whatever it kind of fits in your presentation. And I understand none of them will illustrate some of the things you're talking about, but you could at least have them, and as we taste them, you could go, okay, so the characteristic I'd like to bring out of Bell's Two Hearted, is this pineapple. We think if we used a genetically modified yeast that we could probably bring some pine. I'm just making up stuff,
Mhm.
but that would be, a probably bad example of how we would talk to the calibration beers.
Yeah, I could think about it. I mean, it might be easier to use the calibration beer in more of the terms of which, the commercial beers have more of like a hot side flavor. That might be a little easier
Sure,
than
that
than
that works too.
biofermentation. But so
Yeah.
I'll have to give that some thought, and
Well,
I'll have to.
it's an aspect of sensory training.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Um, we need to narrow down some dates. Um, Obviously, May is gone. There's some possibilities in June. We probably need to avoid the week either surrounding the 4th of July, the week before, the week after. So I can throw some June dates if that is of interest to you. Um, and then otherwise we might be looking, beyond the July 4th week.
Do you usually do these weekdays?
Normally, the audience prefers Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not even sure what time zone you're in.
I'm Eastern. Yep, I'm in Columbia, Maryland, which is right outside Baltimore and DC.
Yep. Okay.
So we could
So
do late June would probably work good. I might have to, depending on our brewing schedule, I might have to, once we get a little closer, figure that out. But is it usually an hour or 2 hours? How much time do you set aside?
yeah, we jump in a green room at 6:30, just like this, and just make sure all the equipment's working well. So we don't go through what we did when we started today. Or we do it 30 minutes beforehand so we can work out, okay, I need to grab another computer or do whatever. Once we're done, you can walk away and then come back 5 minutes before we start. So if at 6:30 we jump online and everything's working perfect, I'll say, Scott, come back in 20 minutes and, we'll jump online because everything's working perfect. Starts at 7. Is generally an hour of solid content, and then the second half is Q&A. And the Q&A is, whatever people put in. So if there's not an hour's worth of questions, then it ends early. If there is an hour's worth of questions, we keep going an hour. The event is a maximum of 2 hours because that's all I pay for. So they literally pull the plug at 9 o'clock or whenever I start 2 hours later. So it can't go any longer than that. But I would plan 6:30 to 9, commit that to your schedule.
Okay. Yeah, I think late June would probably work good for something like that. And I'm sure we can send some emails and figure that out.
I will throw out a date and see if you like that. And if you like that, we can kind of pencil it in and work towards it. I keep it kind of flexible until, the week before, and then that's when all the publicity comes out. And then I'd like to know, that week, that it's really firm and we're going to have it happen. People don't schedule a lot around online events. So, I want it to be flexible for you and flexible for me and flexible for the audience. But we can consider it a soft date until the week before, and then that's when the publicity starts.
Cool. Sounds good. It should be fun, and hopefully we can all learn a little something.
Well, and if you're interested, was talking to Phil Markowski this morning. He has an event Thursday. That publicity will be going out. We're going to be talking about saisons
Cool. Yeah.
and how they have evolved, and I'll use the word Americanized. He didn't use that word, but that's what he implied. Most of which was what he felt like improvements. Um, Adding Brett and some other hops and making saisons even better than his 2004 book. So
That's cool to hear him say. I would agree with that. I think those saisons with Brett, and especially some little bit of hopping, are fun beers.
oh, they are. And I think Boulevard's Tank 7, although I don't think it has any bread in it, certainly
It's a
kind of
great beer.
is the epitome of that style, although it's pretty high in alcohol. Um, but anyway, so if you want to get the feel for a live event, and you'll now, since you've logged in on the platform, you'll get a notification when I send that out. So that'll go out normally the Saturday before, and we'll do pretty much cookie cut the same thing when we do your event.
Cool. Sounds good. Hopefully, I can tune in.
Well, I think they're a lot of fun. I know I thoroughly enjoy it, and usually we have 500 or 600 other people that enjoy it too.
It's cool. No pressure.
It's just two guys talking.
Yeah, there we go. No, this sounds
And
good,
if
and
you can get the yeast company, it might be three.
there we go. I'll do my best.
All right. I know you need to go. Thank you much. And we can
Yes,
communicate primarily by email to kind of work out the details.
sounds good. I appreciate you reaching out, and have a good weekend.
Well, and it's good to talk to you again. And thank Veronica, because I won't say I forgot about you, but it was a nice reminder we hadn't talked in a while.
Well, that was very kind of her to do. That did make me smile.
Bye bye. Have a great day. Have
All
a
right,
great weekend.
too.